Better check your mic, Slash.
Yo.
Shall we wait for light, or are we're gonna make this moody? The movie's pretty moody, so we might as well.
Smooth.
Yes.
Just keep the flashes going.
Yeah, just this is a rock and roll show, so hold those things up and yeah. Speaking of rock and roll, there were a few technical difficulties, as you noticed, but isn't that what rock and roll's all about? A few fuck-ups along the way. I mean, you'll never forget this night, right? Because of that, I mean, well, because of the other reason you're sitting here with the man himself. Give it up for Slash. And the man who directed the film, Anthony. Now, before we get this part of the program going, I just want I want you to put your hands together for the film the opening act, Ivanka Vukovic's short film, which was just a little mini masterclass in style, wherever she is. I don't even know if she's here. I can miss her. I don't see her. Oh, maybe she left. Well, anyways, yes, for the guests. So I'm Chris Alexander, editor of Fangoria magazine, and this is really cool that I get to do this tonight. And see, I guess this is the world premiere, is it, guys? This is the first screening?
It's the first time I've seen it on a big screen, yeah.
Okay, so, again, we should mention that technical difficulties. You may have noticed there were some great shots of people walking along railway tracks where you actually didn't see people. That's because it was kind of in the wrong aspect ratio, right? So we missed maybe a little peripheral details that probably Anthony was clawing his seat while he was watching it. But you get the gist of the movie, you get the vibe of the movie. And I guess my first question is, editing a horror film magazine, I go to my mailbox every day, and independent horror films, by and large, are nickel and dime zombie movies and movies with chicks tied to chairs with duct tape on their mouth. So you guys, your first film, both of you, your first feature film, what made you go the route again of a slow-burning, domestic, small-town, Children of the Corn-esque horror film?
I just thought it was a great story, and I love the sort of innocent.
The portals of hell are opening up. Any minute some black shit's gonna. Is that part of the soundtrack?
Zoe, I'm still not convinced this is a good idea.
Neither am I.
Have you seen the American Southwest?
Wow.
It's vast.
Volume's good now.
Rock and roll. What made you choose to do this movie?
I want to hang out with that guy.
Anyway,
Continue your tale.
So, yeah, I mean, I was given the script, and I just thought it was a great story. I loved the family. I loved the whole idea of Stall, one of the 7 gateways to hell, and Pastor Kingsman being the gatekeeper and luring this poor family into town as a way of controlling the gates from hell from opening up and taking over the earth, right? So I just loved all those dynamics, and then I loved Mary, being the one that turned into the monster. She's sort of the younger sister, and I love the fact that there was a monster, some sort of creature, So just a lot of different elements.
Anthony?
I was sent a whole bunch of different genre scripts, and this one came from Slash. The interesting thing about it was the fact that it wasn't over the top and something I'd seen a million times, the same kind of killings. And the fact that we built up a family so when something happened to him we cared, it was a little more haunting to me. And the fact that I read the script when I moved into a new house. Oh, there? So
We might have to pass this one. I think they can hear me too loud. I hear feedback starting to.
yeah.
Not feedback. Feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I read the script, and I just moved into a new house, and I think I connected with it because I thought the fact that maybe my neighbors planned it. So it was just all perfect timing.
Talk a little bit about your influence, because you said, the basic plot of the story is small towns, one of the 7 gateways of hell. I mean, to me, that screams Lucio Fulci. And the whole last act of the movie felt like a Fulci movie, with the kid running around and the whole tone of it and the doom, the feeling of doom. Talk about some of your influences. You want to start with Slash?
Well, I mean, I was influenced by creepy movies, you know, like going back to, you know, your Mummies and Frankensteins and Wolfmans, and you know, the character from Midnight After, or London After Midnight, that kind of. And so in the 70s, there was, when I was, you know, sort of going, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old, I was turned on to The Exorcist and to Rosemary's Baby, and my big one was The Omen back then. And I loved them because they were dark, but they had great stories, they had great characters, they had great imagination, and they were feature movies. You know, they weren't just little, you know, $7,500 movies that were made. There was these big, epic, scary pictures, and that had a big influence on me.
My influences, I mean, even to go beyond movies, was the short story The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, and Cheever's The Swimmer, something that starts off very normal and then slowly twists into something completely different that you don't suspect. And as far as movies, it was more of like the era of the 70s rather than one particular movie, like stuff like The Stepford Wives and Rosemary's Baby, and these things where it starts off as a normal movie and then horror just kind of slides in at the end. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and even more modern ones like Frailty, which I really responded to. So that's kind of, you know, with the material given, that's kind of where I wanted to push it further.
It was also, more recently, around the time that I first got the script, there was a movie called The Strangers. And I loved that sort of slow burn. And Rosemary's Baby was another slow burn movie that I just thought it's great. It builds up this thing, you're wondering when the fuck something's going to happen. And then when it does, it just goes off the rails kind of thing.
You know, you mentioned the 70s. The Sentinel's in there too, right? It's hiding in there in the peripheral. Yeah, we could go on all night. But there's also kind of a 60s vibe. It kind of has an experimental film vibe. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, the actors. And one of the first things I noticed is that instead of actors obviously trading lines from the script, it seems like some of this was improv. Some of the actors were talking over each other. There was a real loose, real vibe to that. You want to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, especially with horror scripts, I mean, the dialogue in the script was always something we wanted to improve upon or let the actors kind of own it and build their characters. And because it was such a fast shoot, I mean, we did it in 20 days. Improv played a big role in helping us kind of make our days. So it was always about what's the meaning of the scene and then letting them go for it. And it helped keep it a little bit looser than, you know, the straight genre movies that are being done.
Corny lines and stuff.
Yeah, you're trying to keep away as many of those as we could.
No, that was good.
Now, talking about actors, though, the first thing when I saw who was in the movie, first of all, Anne Heche is a very underrated actress. I'd like to see her on screen as much as possible. But the other guy that nobody seems to know how to use the fucking Kurgan anymore in a movie, I'm really glad you put Clancy Brown in the movie and gave him something to do. You know, talk about Clancy there, Slash.
Yeah, well, Clancy's somebody who I've seen in movies for years. I remember seeing him first in Bad Boys. And then it was The Highlander and some other movies after that. And more recently with Shawshank Redemption, I just thought, what a fucking great character actor this guy is. He really owns the part, and he's got a great presence. And we were trying to figure out who was going to play Kingsman. It had to be somebody who could be serious and sort of scary, and at the same time have a heart, you know, because that's the role of this movie. Anyway, so I mentioned to an actor friend of mine, you know, I'm looking for that guy. I didn't know his name, you know. And he said, oh, that's Clancy Brown. He's a friend of mine. We just shot something together. I said, can you get in touch with him and see if we can get him this script? Because I'd love him to play this part. And it just worked out. So that was something, that was a blessing.
Yeah, and then, you know, my first interview with Clancy, he was the only actor that came to the table who didn't come to just be a bad guy. Like, he read the script and he felt really bad for the character. And the whole Chris's death, I think, really affected him, but it was terrible. So what he brought was somebody who was tough enough to get this done, but had this huge burden on his shoulders. And I think that was really important, instead of just making him a black and white bad guy.
There are no black and white bad guys, and this is what I like. There is no real villain, and there's people with a heavy albatross around their neck, a weight they have to carry. The score, we have to talk about the score, because the movie is subtly, sometimes more overtly in other sections, driven by that music. And I think maybe a lot of your fans are expecting a guitar-driven score, right? I could be wrong, and I don't know the genesis of it. I don't know the tech that went on behind it, but it sounds like there is a lot of guitar in there, but a lot of it maybe slowed down, or it sounds like there's scrapings of strings. I mean, it's pretty wild if you really listen to it. Talk about this score.
All right, yeah, with all things considered, with this movie, I think there was a lot of expectations for it to be like guitar-driven, bloody, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, tits. which is another movie. But anyway, getting as a producer, one of the things that was really exciting for me as a musician was to be able to be hands-on with the score. The marriage between the visual and the music for a movie to me is the ultimate orgasmic entertainment experience. So I didn't want it to be guitar-driven. I didn't want it to be that predictable. I thought it needed a real orchestral kind of treatment. And Anthony introduced me to Nick O'Toole, who's a great scoring composer as well as sound designer. So we got together and I would write bits of music and then I would give it to him and he would do interpretations, different instruments and this and that. And there was some scraping and there was some noises that we sort of affected on the guitar just to make it not sound like a guitar.
Well, it's that, with the girl, the younger sister, when she moves, it sounds like a revving up chainsaw. It's a string. Is it a cello? Just like slowed down or something like that? It's really bizarre. It's like, what the fuck is that sound? It's really cool. I've never heard it before. It sounds like a chainsaw. You want to speak on the score? Because you had your hand in helping place where the music went, right?
Yeah. I mean, off the bat, we wanted to do something that was very organic. We didn't want to get real, like, techno-y or anything. So that's kind of what the only direction was. And early on in the process, it's different having a composer come on at the end rather than having the composer be the producer at the beginning. So early on, I would send Slash paintings, and he would look at them and then send me themes, and we'd be sending stuff back and forth, and then it all kind of just organically came together.
It was interesting because there was Nick and I working together in his studio, and then I would be on the road, and I'd be using my laptop and recording onto that and writing to the reels, and I learned a lot doing the score for this movie. And then there's the song which Miles and I did together, and that's sort of a reoccurring theme throughout the movie as well.
And there's a great guitar solo to that song, which unfortunately was clipped at the end. So pick up the soundtrack. And then further to that score, and then we'll turn it over to the audience. I'm not sure how much time we have, probably not very much, but you worked on the score for Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler with Clint Mansell, who's one of the greatest contemporary composers. But I mean, that score is interesting because there's a lot of dead spaces, and I noticed that in there too. It wasn't an oversaturation of sound. There were a lot of times when it was really quiet, which to me is just as important. Knowing where to put the notes is to subtract them, right?
I think with everything, I think less is more. The more time you have sort of observe what's going on without getting hit in all directions with, loud noises and even if it's just you had to fill that spot with some music, so it's there, and sometimes it can be distracting. And the same with violence too. It's like it's better if you sort of put it in places where it's really effective as opposed to just having it all the way throughout.